This is a horror story live stream. The very nature of these stories is to frighten and disturb. The content may contain adult language, themes of death, people being endangered by stalkers, murderers, or creatures. If you do not like to be scared or chilled to your very core, please stop this stream. And now, on to the show.
Welcome, everyone, to the haunting hour. Tonight's tale is one of friendship and memories lost and forcibly regained. A story of two friends reminiscing about when they were young. Some memories are better left alone. A word of caution. Be careful what you remember, or you may find yourself back in Underghost. Do you remember Underghost? Olivia laughed, taking another stale cookie from the tin. I can't believe I fell for all that crap, man. I was one hell of a gullible kid. Underghost? I furrowed my brow as I gathered the empty cups and plates from my small kitchen table. What was that? A movie? Oh, you've got to be screwing with me right now. Olivia lifted a hand to cover her mouth. She talked while chewing, getting bits of cookie stuck in her short, bouncy auburn curls. Don't you even try me, Delia. I have no idea what you're on about, I said, annoyed as I rinsed the dishes in the sink. Olivia was my oldest friend, and I loved her to bits. But the way she carried some conversations was utterly exhausting. Just because we'd known each other since the sandpit days did not mean we had all the same memories lined up. That's... Olivia's body language changed as she paused a moment, gathering her thoughts. That's really weird, if you mean it. I really thought you would remember that. Remember what, Livy? I asked, rubbing my temples to soothe the beginnings of a headache. Underghost. It's what we call that weird paved part behind your house. Olivia watched me carefully, expecting my face to flood with recognition. You remember it? The yard ended and there was just a narrow area covered in cement. It separated the back of your house from the wall to your neighbor's place. I guess I remember what you're talking about. It's been over a decade, but sure. I don't know what that name, though, I admitted. You're freaking me out a little. Olivia leaned back in her chair. There was a distant look in her eyes, the type she got when recalling our childhood days. I guess you still had to have it made it all up somehow, even if you don't remember it now. Can you just tell me what you're talking about instead of trying to pull this vague and mysterious crap? I snapped, my headache flaring as my heartbeat pounded in my chest. The air in my studio apartment grew thick, constricted. I couldn't explain the physical reaction I was having. It was as though there was a memory buried deep within my psyche. One, just out of reach. Something. Olivia scanned my face with distrusting eyes, as though she were waiting for me to jump up and scream, "Gotcha!" But we weren't kids anymore, and I'd grown up to be the serious one. Satisfied I wasn't pretending, Olivia got up and went over to the cupboard where I kept my emergency wine, which was usually reserved for bad breakups. "We're going to need this," she said, feeling 2 washed teacups with cheap rose. "I have wine glasses, you know," I began to protest. But Olivia ignored me, leaving the kitchenette and walking over to my couch, which also doubled as a bed. "Settle down. It might take me a while to recall all of it," she said. I did as she said, cozying up on the other end of the couch, with a pillow over my stomach. I still felt a bit anxious, but the prospect of Rose cheered me up considerably. Olivia was a great storyteller, and it was always a joy to hear her recounting our childhood escapades. Not this one, though. I don't know if I needed to hear what she told me next. Some things are better left forgotten. Olivia's first recollection. "It all started around the time you changed your name. We were in the 2nd grade, and up until that point, everyone called you by your first name, Annette. One day, Mrs. Lindy made the announcement. From that day forth, we were to call you by your middle name, Delia. It was a choice you'd made, and we all had to respect it. The boys teased you something awful, reaching for the worst possible stuff, like Delia, Peonia, and other nonsense. I chalked it up to being just another phase, another ploy for attention. Boy, oh boy, did little Annette love attention. Always dancing and singing, laughing and causing trouble. Loud, obnoxious, in your face. I still can't believe you grew up to be so reserved. No one questioned you about the name change. After the first couple of weeks, it just sort of stuck. Our parents were really tight back then, remember? It felt like every other weekend my family was over at your place, grilling some sort of meat. Our dads would clink beer glasses to us, to our moms, to the president, until it got to some guy they once knew at college, and one of our moms had to intervene. We hated it when they drank, so we kept out of their way, usually in your room, sometimes in the garden. We would play some messed up games, as I'm sure you remember. Must have been because our parents sheltered us from the R-rated stuff, so we had to make up our own blood, guts, and gore. It was never really scary, though. Just silly play pretend, and we knew it. It was the middle of the day when you first lured me to the back of your house. I say lured because I didn't want to follow you. Despite the bright, sunny day outside, the bare concrete was casting shadows from the tall walls surrounding it. I remember wondering why it was so empty. We had a similar lot behind our house, but it was totally jam-packed with old trolleys, garden sheds, piles of trash, you name it. "What is this place?" I called after you, keeping my bare feet rooted in the safety of warm lawn grass. My voice was a squeaky, timid echo in the suddenly large, imposing place. "This is Underghost," you called back, without turning as you walked to the furthest wall. I'm inviting you in, Olivia. Not everyone gets the privilege. There was something strange about your voice. It was an octave lower, more eloquent. It was the voice of someone far beyond our years. I followed you, though. I didn't want to be called a chicken. A chill ran down my spine the moment my bare toes hit the cold, prickly concrete. I stared down at my feet, realizing I did not want to go further. Don't be afraid, Olivia, you whispered in my ear, and I stumbled back, falling to the grass with a startled shriek. It was impossible. Seconds before, you were a good 50 feet away from me. And then you were right there, grabbing my feet and pulling me back onto the concrete. I yelled and screamed. Our parents came running at the sound of my screams, ushering us back into the house. Olivia searched my face for some sort of reaction. I took a small sip of the wine and stared at the cheap coffee table I'd inherited from the previous tenant. I really don't remember that, I admitted, wondering why my apartment had grown so cold. Do you feel that? The cold? Olivia shook her head, observing me closely. You don't look so good, Delia. Are you starting to remember? I don't think so, I replied, shivering. I felt cold one moment, then my cheeks would grow hot the next. There was an itch at the back of my neck that no amount of scratching could complete it. And every breath I took felt laborious. I'd never felt claustrophobic in my life, but right then, my tiny apartment seemed to be closing in on me. I tried to calm myself. Just tell me the rest of it. I'll be fine. Are you sure? There was genuine concern on Olivia's face. Something else, too. Fear. Yes, I sighed. I think this reaction has something to do with what you're telling me, and I need to remember it in order to process it. Olivia's second recollection. I was reluctant to come over to your house for some time after that. We'd done a lot of messed up stuff together. We were obsessed with making up stories to scare each other and reading every Goosebumps paperback our town had to offer. I mean, I knew you were playing, I guess. Like that time you'd left me alone in that haunted house. Or the time you pretended to throw up blood, but it was actually ketchup. It only took a couple of weeks before I was able to spend afternoons at your place. I'd all but forgotten the entire Underghost ordeal when we were sitting in your room, playing some weird hat dare quiz. You got very quiet suddenly, which was unusual for you back in those days. Your eyes seemed to lose focus, and your voice had the older tone to it again. We should go outside, Olivia, you said. We should go outside and play as children do. You turned to look at me with those distant eyes. The corners of your mouth lifted, imitating a smile. The grimace was insincere. It was like there was someone tugging at invisible strings sewn into your mouth corners. I remember straining to hear the sounds of our moms talking in one of the other rooms. My mom's obnoxious snort giggle soothed my nerves. I was scared, but I still felt safe. I think I'd like to stay inside, I replied, edging away from you. Don't be afraid of me, Olivia, you said. It's Livy, I replied. Only grown-ups call me Olivia. Livy. You tilted your head, baring your teeth with the faux smile still plastered on. Livy, I want to show you Underghost. No! I shrieked, baby tears welling in my eyes. I was too big for tears. I knew that. But you were scaring me. No, Annette, I won't go there. If I thought the hollow leer was terrifying, it was nothing compared to the sinister look you threw me when I used your old name. You ran up to me, grabbing both my ears and pulling my face close to yours. Needless to say, I was probably bawling at this point, crying out for our parents to come save me. My name is Delia, you roared in my face. Only the voice wasn't yours. It was too deep and guttural. I still don't know how you did that. Our mothers barged in the room seconds later, pulling us apart and sorting things out. Feverish sweat ran down my face. Olivia looked very pale as she watched me, taking a big swig of wine from her cup. It was as though no time had passed at all. The years had melted in reverse, and we were back to being two scared kids, trembling under our blanket fort as we finished reading a particularly terrifying story. The sleepover? I choked out, though talking proved to be a real challenge. The itch at the back of my neck grew into an even more bothersome sensation. A dull, throbbing ache. You remember? Olivia's eyes grew wide. I shook my head. I did. And I didn't. Olivia's last recollection. After that last time, I stayed the hell out of your way. I wouldn't even sit with you at school anymore. Remember? You had scared me so much. I was sure you were acting. I just thought you were taking it too far and being a jerk about it. Unfortunately for me, my parents didn't seem to care that we'd fallen out. It was New Year's Eve, and our families had planned a bash. I had to spend the night with you while our parents got drunk and partied the night away. I was properly miffed at that, but there was no way out of it. To my surprise, you were sweeter than usual when I arrived, like you were just glad to have me talking to you again. We had our great night of playing board games and complaining about our embarrassing parents, who had started up the karaoke machine in the living room. We actually had a really fun evening before. Well, We went to bed shortly after the midnight fireworks show. It was definitely a first, but we didn't tell scary stories before falling asleep that night. Instead, we rewatched some old VHS tapes and went straight to bed while our parents continued the festivities. The cold was what woke me up. That and the hard texture of the ground beneath me. I opened my eyes to see a starry night sky above. I sat upright, fully alert, taking in my surroundings. It was that lot behind your house again, I realized. Underghost. I was outside, alone, in the middle of the night, dressed in nothing but a thin nightie. My parents would kill me. Laugh. Your laugh, but not quite. Oh, Livy, parents are the least of your concerns right now. Not quite your voice sounded from somewhere. I twisted my neck around, trying to catch sight of you, but you weren't anywhere near. Pitch black corners threatened me from every side, and I suspected you were lurking in the shadows. Stop it, Delia, I cried, my voice steadier and more confident than I felt. No. Your hot breath grazed my ear, and I shrieked, jumping to my feet and sprinting toward the safety of the front yard. Your small silhouette was already there in front of me, barring the narrow exit from Underghost. Why are you afraid? Don't you like scary stories, Livy? I couldn't see your face. The street lights behind your head were too bright, casting a long shadow on the pavement between us. Too long. I remember thinking, and when I looked down again, saw your shadow inching closer to me, slithering and wrapping itself around my ankle. I jerked my foot away, jumped up, and ran in the opposite direction, moving deeper into Underghost. Later, I would rationalize it all the way. You being in two places at once, the creepy shadows, all of it. You'll like it in here, in Underghost, I promise. You called after me. I turned to look, but you had disappeared again. I was already expecting you to catch me unawares, so I was only half shocked by your ice-cold fingers gripping my shoulders. Your nails clamped down hard on me as you slid something cold and wet inside my right ear. It was your tongue, Delia. I screamed at the top of my lungs, crying for my mom and dad as I tried to throw you off me. You just kept jamming your tongue inside my ear until it began to hurt. I was sobered by the hint of serious pain. Somehow that was enough to get my brain working again. I stopped screaming and started scanning my surroundings, which were devastatingly bare. My only hope was a medium-sized rock near my feet. I lunged toward it, sending both of us to the ground. The fall hurled you forward, and I had a split second to pick up the rock and throw it at the nearest window, using all my strength my two child arms could muster. The window shattered, and music spilled from the house. Of broken glass showered down on us, leaving countless tiny cuts all over our exposed limbs. I screamed again, and someone inside the house turned the music off. Our parents had heard, I remember thinking. It was going to be okay. The next moment, you were on top of me, pushing my face into the paved ground, growling words in a language I've never heard since. My dad was the one that pulled you off me, but not before you managed to sink your teeth into my right shoulder. I was hysterical at that point, but I did catch a glimpse of your face as they dragged you away. You were laughing, Delia. You were laughing, a throaty, mouth wide open sort of laugh with my blood dripping down your chin. You looked absolutely demented, winking at me when our eyes locked as my father carried you out of view on his broad shoulders. I first tried interrupting Olivia when she mentioned waking up outside in the middle of the night. Memories started flooding back, and I wanted to tell her that the same thing had happened to me. But I couldn't move my mouth to speak. I couldn't move at all. To Olivia, I was just sitting there on the couch, the way I had done countless times throughout the years. She couldn't tell that I had begun screaming soundlessly, that I was trying to escape my paralyzed body. How soon she would understand. Jesus Christ, Delia. Olivia tried to pick up the wine bottle, but her hands were shaking so hard she nearly knocked it over. I didn't even remember half of it. Not until right now. Need help with that, Olivia? A voice said. Where did that come from? Was someone there with us? I tried to twist my neck, but it was locked in place. Let me pour you some more, the voice continued as my right arm extended toward Olivia, beckoning her to hand over the empty cup. The voice was coming from me. I felt more muscles moving, this time in my face. Was I smiling? A look of recognition crossed Olivia's face, and she jumped up from the couch. Run! I wanted to scream at her. Get out of here right now! But I couldn't utter a sound. Not only was I completely mute and immobile, but I was also beginning to lose my vision. It started slowly, with a red mist blurring my view. Before I knew it, I was seeing red and hearing distant, muffled sounds that could have been Olivia's screams. Then I lost consciousness. Several hours later, I woke up on my couch bed with all my senses and movement abilities fully regained. I cried out for Olivia, but there was only silence. I began searching for my friend, inspecting every corner of my tiny apartment. My brain kept jumping to the worst possible scenarios, and I looked for signs of a struggle, but there were none. Olivia's coat hung in my hallway. Her car keys, wallet, and phone were still in the pockets. I was just about to give up the search and call the cops when I noticed a small piece of paper sticking out from under Olivia's wine cup. It was a sticky note with Olivia's handwriting that read, "You can find me in Underghost. Livy." Olivia has been missing for 2 weeks now. I've told the police everything I know, including the details of our conversation. They didn't take my testimony seriously, especially since I'm currently the prime suspect in my best friend's disappearance. They sent some officers to my old childhood home, though. Several families have owned it since mine moved out, and it is currently up for sale. The police found no traces of Olivia inside the house, in the yard, or in the paved lot out back. I keep trying to rationalize what happened, to find logical explanations for the events that occurred. It's hard to do, though, when every night Olivia comes to me in my dreams, beckoning me to join her in Underghost. Every morning, I wake up, drenched in cold sweat, panic-stricken, and crying. I want to bring my friend back, but I'm too afraid of what will happen if I go searching for her in Underghost. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I hope that you have a restful night's sleep, and I see you again here in the haunting hour.
Tonight's story was written by Daria Vasileva. Reddit profile Peculi_Dar. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us here at Haunting Hour Horror. If you would like us to read your story on the Haunting Hour, email us at hauntinghourhorror@gmail.com.